Hey guys, welcome back to the Mind Body broadcast with Austin and Marty. And today we're going to do a continuation of our lower body training episode that we put out recently. So today we're going to talk more about some single joint movements. Obviously, we need to talk about glute training, and let's talk about some of the surrounding musculature, your adductors, abductors, and of course, calves. So,
People
well,
actually
I
still
think,
train calves? God.
well, yeah, sometimes I wonder if I should even train them, if it makes any difference or not.
Oh, yep.
But it's like you either you either have them or you don't. I'm thinking about maybe I should just get really fat for like 2 years and
See,
then
now, you know what? Let's start out there because I believed that for a while. I would see some of these dudes get so off season, 40, 60, 80 pounds overweight. And I'm like, you know what?
right,
So every time they go upstairs, that's a single legged 80-pound extra calf raise. I'm like, that's why these guys are getting these big ass calves. They're going for hikes, and they're doing the stairs and doing that because yeah, how many different calf protocols have you seen, Austin? There's what there's the high rep, there's the low rep, there's stretching, and you see some guys bust their humps almost every single time with calves, and then of course you see people that don't, but the ones that do, it's just the return on training calves just seems to not be there. Like I usually try to make them be akin to a forearm in terms of like we talked about in one of the other episodes there, like doing the forearm extension or the forearm flexion exercises. Just there's so little return there, but with calves, yeah, I just think there's such a damn genetic component to it as well.
yeah, oh, 100%. I mean, genetic components to everything, right? But it's like you think there's those few muscles that seem to have the most genetic component, quote unquote, would
Yep.
probably be calves and maybe arms,
And I,
you
I would,
know.
and then I would say abs in terms of what they're going to look like. Like I've
Yeah,
seen guys that don't do abs, I've seen guys that do abs, and just, especially from an aesthetic standpoint, for sure.
right. Yeah, like ab insertions and
Yep.
depth and all that jazz for sure. But yeah, calf training, I talking from experience, guy with so here's the thing about calves is it's you have a couple different things. You can have a small calf or you can have maybe an okay sized calf, but the insertion is just not very good,
Yeah, it just
in terms of
doesn't have that cannonball or that football look to it, right?
and that's kind of where I'm at. Like I've been able to build the back, like if standing from the back, the calf has that depth to it, and standing from the side, it kind of bulges out or whatever. But from the front, it's like that insertion is so high.
Mm-hmm.
It's the what is that? Like a sprinter's calf, right? Real
Yes.
high insertion. So what can you do about that? Nothing. it's just
Yep.
that's just what. Yeah, I mean that's just reality. Like you can train the different quote unquote layers of the calf, like doing the soleus muscle and then gastroc
Yep.
by doing changing. All you're really doing there is changing the angle of your leg. One's with a straight leg, one's with a bent knee.
You got it.
So um, now how much of a difference is that going to make? Uh, I could say I could say it does make a difference for me when I'm like really lean. My calves are, calves don't get super fat anyhow, but when I'm
Yeah.
really lean, you can definitely see a difference in the way that they look. Um, Considering that I'm training both angles or knee angles.
Yep.
So, take that for what you will. But most people want to know, aside from that, most people want to talk about like rep ranges and sets and reps and stuff. And I personally, I vary them a lot
Yes.
because I feel like that's probably the only thing that's worked for me and for most of my clients that have had stubborn calves in terms of actually getting somewhere with them is varying rep ranges. And I kind of think of it as you walk on your calves all day. So it's like muscles in general need a stimulus. They need like some reason to form an adaptation, right? Some reason to grow. So if you walk on them or if you've been an athlete, for a lot of your life or whatever, I think you got to think of like how are you going to overload your calves to get them to grow.
Right.
So um, typically my variance would be I would do like a three-way variance personally. I would do a really high rep, kind of a moderate, and then I would do a day where I would do a heavier, like an 8 to 10.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, moderate would be like the 20 to 30 range. In the high rep days, I would literally do 2 to 3 sets of 75 to 100, where they're just like, about to tear out of the skin. So, that would kind of be, I would do a little more for the moderate reps. I would probably do 4 to 5 sets. And for the heavy reps, I would probably do like, 4 to 5, maybe 6 sets.
Yeah.
So I would kind of, titrate it like that. But yeah, I don't know what you've had experience with, but I just find that for most people with stubborn calves, they need like a variance of stimulus.
Exactly, because what it is like I look at that's why I really akin it to the forearms there, is because the forearms you use all damn day, every day. Every time you open your hand, every time you squeeze your hand, you pick something up, you put something down. It's one of those muscles that are used all the time. Like if you go get a massage on your calves or your forearms, there's always going to be something in there because they're being used. They're overused all the time. Every step you take, everything you do, whether it's bent leg, half bent leg, completely seated, completely locked out, you're using these muscles all the time. And to try to give them a stimulus that they haven't seen, it's got to be really damn hard, let alone in one gym session, right? So, what actually, funny enough, what really did work the absolute best for me was DC calf training. And I'll tell you, that is the most wackiest crap that you'll ever see for calf training if you can actually fight your way through it. But I remember, because it was also, too, a lot of this stuff, and even this could be attributed completely to every one of the body parts, is how much effort are you actually putting in? Are you training your calves like you're training your biceps? Are you training your calves like you're training your chest? Because people don't usually get fired up and come in and go, yeah, it's friggin' calf day. Let's blast these babies, right? So, but you do. Right. You have to get really friggin' crazy about that stuff, right? You can't just go in and bounce. And how many times have you seen people bouncing, Austin? Whether on the seated calf or the standing calf, just bounce up and down, bounce. I'm like, you're not training calves. You're training a bounce movement. You're training a friggin' one of those paddle balls on the handle, just bang, bang, bang. That's not training the calves, let alone an eccentric thing. So, I remember kind of looking at that DC calf training protocol, which was absolutely bananas. And I remember having to wear literal steel toe construction boots just for calf training, because if not, I was going to give myself plantar fasciitis. And so the one that I used to do, we had a really great standing calf machine in one of the gyms I used to work at about 10 years ago. And the protocol was, I think at least twice a week or so, you would do only one set of your calves, but the one set was one of the most scariest things you could go through. And you correct me if I'm wrong on this one, because this is only going off of my memory here, Austin, is that you would blast up. So you'd stand up as high as you can, try to go into your big toe, big toe as much as you can. Take 5 seconds on the eccentric. You'd count your head, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you sit in that stretch. I think it was for 15 seconds. Hang out in that stretch with as much friggin' weight as you can handle. And I'll tell you that becomes brutal. It becomes brutal after that 15 seconds, and you gotta blast back up, and then you gotta come back down for those 5 seconds. You only try to get, I think it was anywhere between 8 and maybe 10, maybe 12 reps, and by about the 5th rep, you're hearing colors and you're seeing sounds. But by the time you're making it to that, and I will tell you, I did that for a solid 3 months. I really gave it an F this mentality. And when I want to say it put at least half an inch to an inch on my calves that stayed kind of permanently, because it was stress that it's never seen before. Because it was like a huge walking down the stairs, weight, eccentric loading. So because you don't do that. If you think about what you do every day for calves, is you walk around and you step and you do pretty much the concentric movement. You don't really see the eccentric movement a lot. So when Dante Trudel came up with that, and between that and remember the calf cardio protocol he had too.
Yeah,
I did that. I didn't do that. I did it, but I didn't do it for as consistently as I did the other one. But it did work. It's just, but my God, it was brutal. But I think it really does boil down to, like we were talking about, not only the genetic component, but also how hard are you training that? Are you fired up to go into the gym to train calves? Because because everyone does want better calves, but it's a long, hard road, boys and girls, trying to get your calves beefed up to that kind of level.
It's boring. Yeah,
it's boring as shit. You're not kidding.
Yeah, it's not exciting. It's funny you mentioned the DC. That's what I'm doing right now, actually.
See, perfect. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So
what are kind of your favorite calf exercises? Would you say then? Do you have especially in your barn gym there? Do you have a seated or a standing, or what do you have?
So I have a leg press that the actual foot flex down. So I just kind of do like the heel hanging, the heel hangs into like a really brutal stretch on that leg.
And that is a brutal stretch. You're not kidding. That's brutal.
Right. So what I'll typically do with it though is kind of a tip on those standing calf raises, or if you're doing them on the leg press, is I actually will intentionally put just a very slight bend in my knee, not a lot, because I don't want to
Okay.
like use my quads to thrust the weight up, but
I get what you're
I'll
saying
do just a,
entirely. Yeah.
right. I just use a little bit of a bend because if I have my leg completely straight, like sometimes it's like stressing my hamstring out a lot.
Yeah.
I'll feel like I'll stretch so much. Like if I get my leg straight, I can stretch so much I can feel it all the way down to my lower back.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like all the way down the chain. So especially when you're seated and bent over. But
Yes.
yeah, the leg press works great. I like the leg press for calf raises just because, yeah, you can still, like I said, you can still cheat and kind of use your quads a little bit, but it does take your torso out of the movement. And the standing calf, like I find that the leg press is a little bit easier simply because you can kind of really lock yourself in and get gritty and like hold on to the handles. You know what I mean? Like you're not
Yes.
it, and you're not having to stand up and get fatigued because you're in the standing position. So take that for what you will. I also have like a little um, block that I use for like seated calf raises. I just freaking put plates on my lap. It's super ghetto, but it
Absolutely.
works.
Hey, exactly. Does
So
it work? Exactly. Yes.
yeah, but yeah, effort. Like you said, it's just effort. Like I go in and I train calves and a lot of time by myself, but sometimes when I'm training with people, I mean we literally push each other on calves just like we would anything else.
Hmm.
It's like
Perfect.
you just have to. I mean, you're not, like I said, it really boils down to do your calves or does the muscle group have a reason to form that adaptation and grow? Like there has to be
Yes.
a reason.
Well,
Otherwise you can go through the motions all you want.
because I remember wearing a belt on standing calf raises. Now that you mention it, because it started hitting my lower back too, because I wanted to keep my legs as straight as possible to hit the one part of the calf versus the other. Because yeah, as soon as you unlock your knees, you see that weird kind of quad press calf jaunt. We'll call it up, where you can kind of get into like a swinging
Yeah,
motion there. And of course, that's not training
sure.
the full muscle like we're talking about for sure. And it's the same thing too with even with the seated calf, where it's kind of bent the whole way, is you kind of get into that groove. Like I know I've seen lots of weird stuff. We'll say in terms of people being like, well, point your heels in versus point your heels out versus doing this. It's for when I get asked that question, I just say, what feels the best for you? Where are you getting the highest peak contraction? Because remember, way back in the day, I don't even know if we've mentioned this guy on the podcast yet, but remember Vince Gironda would do barefoot calves, and he'd say, if you're not on just your pinky toe, or sorry, your big toe, like all of their toes are not there, you're not doing calves right. And I remember roaring laughing because I'm like, okay, if the rest of my foot is not on the calf pad, I'm not training my calves. But the guy had some wild ideas. That's why I think his book was called The Wild Physique or whatever. But it's just making sure that not only are you not creating an imbalance, because if you look down at your feet, let's say during a standing or a seated calf, that one heel is not turned in more than another and things like that, that's going to help you out a lot.
Yeah, so driving up through your toe, that's a good
Hmm.
one.
I agree,
Yeah,
because
that
that's where
that's
you get, where you can get that pinnacle kind of maximum contraction there for that second or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely driving through your toe. Trying to think what else. I mean, in terms of in terms of frequency, you can probably train your calves every day, really, or
I
every
bet you
training.
could. I've never tried that, but I bet you literally could for at least a bit, for sure.
Yeah, so I train mine every training session. So it's technically not every day, but
Yep.
it is every time I'm in the gym, I train my calves, and I've been doing it like that for I don't know, at least probably 3 or 4 years. So,
Yep.
take that for what you will. It seems it's helped. I mean, I've probably put an inch and a half or more, maybe 2 inches on them in the last 4 years, which
Which is, what?
that's
I will say that's fantastic. If you can put half an inch on a year, you're doing really friggin' good in my eyes.
yeah. I mean, they're still small, but they were just very, very, very small to start with. So
You're now a medium sized T-shirt, whereas before you were an extra medium T-shirt. So now you're all bulked up a bit, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
and it
cool.
doesn't, it doesn't help like it doesn't help that I have good quads from the front. You know what I mean? So it like makes the
No, no. But
calves look bigger, but I'd much rather have good quads than small
Oh, for sure.
calves.
And I will say this too. I remember training with Skip Ken Hill back in the day, and I remember he's like, Marty, the last time I've seen a guy lose a bodybuilding show because of his calves has been never. Because he used to be, I don't know if he still is or not, but a judge. But like, yeah, like if it boils down to it, let's
Never.
say Austin and we'll say Bizarro Austin are on stage. Bizarro Austin has a little bit bigger calves because he's the exact same as Austin, and then he wins. Okay, whoop de doo. But it's not going to be, oh my God, look at those guys' calves. He's winning clearly because of this. No, it's not going to happen. But however, it is. You know what? Big calves are cool, man. Small calves have never been cool. So that's just the
Yeah.
that's the kind of the take home, right? Is that if they look big, that's fucking cool. Let's keep going with that.
Right. No, you're right. That's exactly right. So just for your own peace of mind,
You
you
got it.
can
You got it.
have better calves. But yeah, so let's talk about glutes, training glutes. Everyone wants to know
Yeah.
about training their glutes, not just the ladies, the guys
No,
too, because I'll
I'm
tell you what,
just about to say, lead off with that. Not just the ladies. You
you
got it.
know, like if you want good glutes on stage, part of it is having that muscle there to begin with. You know what I mean? Like you can't
Exactly.
and this and it's the same for the ladies, like especially you bikini gals. Like if you want your glutes to pop on stage, and you have to think, once you strip that subcutaneous fat off the top of them, there has to be
Hmm.
muscle there. Like, yeah, just because your butt's round in the off season with fat doesn't mean it's going to look good on stage once suck all the fat off of it. So, you got to have muscle. Like your butt should be pretty damn big in the off season, because by the time you pull that fat off of it, you're going to lose a couple inches easy.
Well, so some
You
girls
know,
especially have some really damn good fat distribution in terms of
right?
like they
Sure.
don't have the pear shape, they're not they distribute pretty damn evenly, and then their butt will look good. And then if they don't train their butts enough, I've seen, even let's say we're doing a 16-week contest prep, by about 12 or 10 weeks out, I'm like, what happened to your butt? And they're like, what? And I'm like, how on earth? I'm like, can I have that distribution of fat in my biceps? So in the off season, my biceps look that friggin' big and good? But no, of course, but just, yeah. And I remember at least two competitors, very particularly in my head, that they lose all their butt. And people are like, what happened to your butt? It's just, I don't know how this happens, Austin, how they have that ability to have that subcutaneous fat spread so evenly that their butt not only like screw you yoga pants, like even then, but let's say even in a bikini, or it still looks fantastic, but there's still that ability there. But you just nailed it. You've got to train it, even though it might look great in the, we'll say, off season or when not before show. You still have got to make sure that you're training it, even though it is just the gluteus maximus. There is the minimus that needs to be trained a little bit too, but the maximus, it's especially now where the, we'll say, judging is going, is that people, especially now, because when did they change it that when you switch to the back, the hair is put down on the back? They don't even show the back anymore, right? So that's how much emphasis is on the
Yeah.
glutes. Is that if
Right.
you've got to have a dynamite set of glutes that from the back. And here I will lead actually with my quite pretty funny story here, because I was one of those guys that had, because thanks to playing football and having super long legs, that I never really used any glutes. I used all quads. And so I remember having kind of that pancake ass or that concave ass that just kind of nothing was there. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start doing some of these frilly exercises that not only Brett Contreras, but some of the other guys were showing, like with the bands and whatever. I said, I'm going to do these, like especially how we like to talk about activation exercises and things like that. Girls and guys, I look into something called the hip circle. I'm pretty sure it's made by Slingshot, which is one of the guys that do all like a lot of those powerlifting things with the bands for the chest and things. But it's called the hip circle. There are other ones out there that are made that are not quite as good a quality, but the gold standard in my eyes is something called the hip circle. And it can really help you to at least show you what to do with your glutes, because if you're not genetically blessed enough to do like something like a Romanian deadlift or a squat and feel it in your glutes, you're going to have to do something else to at least go, oh, this is what my glutes do. Cool. Now I know what to do. So I did that for, I think, oh my gosh, 3 months. I think it was from an August to a November or something like this. And I shit you not, I gained 8 inches on my ass. And it was hilarious. Because I just did it. Because I just did it. I was like, man, I've been training so many damn bikini girls. I may as well start doing some of the shit I've been telling them to do. And I have a picture up on my Instagram of it. I'm like, what the fuck happened to my butt? So, but it was unbelievable between doing some band stuff, which is like, you think that bands would be easy. No, if you don't have a butt, you do some of this advanced band stuff, and you do some circuits. You do it at the end of, we'll say, either a quad or hamstring day, or you do it on its own day. Magic will happen, and not only that, but then you'll be able to know how to contract your glutes during other exercises. Because now maybe, let's say you only felt hamstrings during the Romanian deadlift. Now you're gonna feel glutes during the Romanian deadlift because now your butt knows what the frig to do. So it's hilarious. I remember I purposely went out there because my butt was looking really small. I purposely went out and bought some Celestial Bodies leggings and walked to the gym every day in leggings until finally someone said, "What have you been doing to make your butt so big?" And it finally happened 3 months in, and I was like, yes, one of the most proudest moments of my life.
Yeah, and that's kind of a takeaway point on a lot of those lagging muscle groups, or groups that you don't feel very well in terms of the mind muscle connection, is you have to establish that initial connection. And then once you do it, you're able to train it more effectively on any exercise, so that might be like doing something for activation beforehand, or it could just be, could be like in your case, you did it for a few months. Now, I bet you could probably go without the band and you'd probably be able to activate your glutes okay.
And that's exactly
what I mean?
my
Like,
point. It's exactly what
right.
Remember when we talked on the chest episode that I literally never had felt my chest before until I did those one-arm pec decks. 15 to 25 reps, one-arm pec decks at the beginning of every single frigging chest chest day, until then finally I was able to do incline bench press and not feel my shoulders or my triceps. Because I hope we're really hammering this home on these podcasts about the body parts here, is that activation exercises are beyond key. I don't care if you're using a 0-pound dumbbell or a 1 pound. I don't care. If you can go, okay, I can feel this in my glutes, I can feel this in my hamstring, then take that and then slowly chip away at it. And then finally you'll be able to have it be a heavy hitter in terms of at least be able to take over on exercises, not just have it be laying dormant. Like we'll keep going back to the Romanian deadlift there, because if it's also like the muscles I have inside my head, that the muscles talk to each other. It's like the hamstrings go to the glutes. Nah, don't worry, you can go back to bed. I got this shit. So, but now you want to make sure that the glutes will wake up and be able to do something. Especially, if we're talking, obviously this whole podcast is talking about like bodybuilding and making the shape and the size bigger or something. Yeah, and if you're competing, like I don't think there's a single women's division that does not have glutes on their criteria in terms of you got to have them. You can't have dented in glutes, and exactly like you said, men are still. I will say I love seeing men do some band and glute stuff in the gym now. It's cracking me up because it's so fluffy, but I do it too, and I'm like, hey. So I remember waiting for a guy. We were doing the AB abduction machine. I was waiting for him. I'm like, this is hilarious. I'm like, hey man, are you done yet? I need to use this to grow my glutes. But yeah, you have to start recognizing this stuff, especially if it's a weak point in terms of your physique.
Right. Yeah. 100%. So, I mean, we talked about like a lot of the exercises would be things like your RDLs would be a staple. I mean, you can do direct glute exercises like a glute bridge. I mean, there's a ton of, there's multiple variations that you can do depending on, what kind of machines you have, or if you just want to do the old traditional barbell on the lap or Smith machine. I mean, there's a bunch of ways to do it. But yeah, I mean, you can, a couple ways I like to do it's like you could either implement those direct glute exercises or just pre-activate your glutes before you do things like squats, for example. For some people, that's enough, because once they're activated, they're getting hammered when you squat and do RDLs and things like that. You don't necessarily have to expend a bunch of energy doing glute bridges.
Right.
Some people might, if we want to really give them extra attention, then we can do things like that. And I mean, they're going to get hit on a lot of stuff, even like a long stride lunge. They're going to get hit on.
I was just about to say that exactly. A longer lunge, like not a short one, but one where you really stick that leg out in front. You got it.
Yeah. I mean, a long stride lunge, or even a long, or like a wide, wouldn't be wide. It would be like a long stance, split squat, so
yes,
so stuff like that. Or we talked about the high stance leg presses. So anything essentially you got to think like anything where your foot's further away from your waistline, like out further, and your knee comes up, it's going to be less of a leg angle usually. And it's just going to be a further out stance. That's going to hit your glutes more. You can, like you talked about liking the Smith machine. Yeah, well, you can set it up in the Smith machine too. You could do a squat where you kind of lean back against the bar and walk your feet out a little bit,
Yep.
and do your squats like that, and it's going to hit more glutes. So it's just, you don't have to. People want to they do all these little frilly exercises like your kickbacks and shit like that. Well, you're not going to get a lot of bang for your buck there.
Yes.
You're going to get more bang for your buck when you overload them after you pre-activate them. So make sure, activation first, and then go for it. But yeah, I do the hip. I have a couple hip bands too, and
Nice. Perfect.
I'll do like little side steps. Literally, just put it around my knees and just do
Yes.
side steps
Yes.
back and forth. Yep. I'll just do it. If I squat, I'll do 2 to 3 of those in between my lightest sets of squats, and then by the time I
Exactly.
have 225 on the bar, so my glutes are already fired up. I'm ready to
Exactly.
go.
Yep.
You
One
know,
of the things
so
one of the things I can't stand the most is when I hear it's just exactly the same thing with the abs. Funny enough, I was looking at my buddy who I moved out to Alberta with. Geez, what is it now? 2019. This is 2007. So 12 years ago, I moved out here. He's one of those guys that just immediately had everything genetically gifted to him. Right? He's one of those guys that could never train abs. Yet when he dieted down, bulletproof abs, the 8 pack of ravioli, and never did a thing of abs. However, that's that. To give the advice to say you only need squats and deadlifts to train your abs, my God, come on. Like even from a lower back or a core standpoint, no, not only is it not going to be enough, we'll say, but when people say if you just do squats, deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, that's enough for your glutes. I'm like, I will firmly tell you, then why on earth did when I started implementing these fluffy exercises did my glutes grow? Because I finally gave them the attention that they needed, right? So it's just something to take away is that if you need something to grow, of course you need to give it not only the exercises that your body feels, but you need to give it the amount of attention and frequency that it feels. So yeah, it's a whole like especially when people or you'll see on forums or on good Facebook pages saying how do you build your back? Well, man, you just need to do heavier rows or heavier deadlifts. I'm like, really? That's your advice? Is just to do heavier of the stuff that hasn't been working for them? We know this. It's one of those. I think it's the Albert Einstein definition of insanity: is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. You're gonna have to try something different. So between even adding in maybe a glute circuit or adding in a glute couple exercises at the end of the leg day, like I love that what you said about after the couple lighter sets of squats and your glutes are on fire. That's perfect because not only are they activating, they're firing, they're warmed up, they're going to be able to take part of the process, though, right? But I will give you one of the things I think it was between me and I like that I've talked about him ever so slightly on here on the podcast is the genius massage therapist I have from where I used to live there in Red Deer, Alberta. He I call it now the sprinter lunge or something like that. Is exactly like you said. Is that you need to extend your leg a little bit further out in front of you than you would a regular lunge because if your torso is straight up and down, what are you going to use? More so your quad. But if you get your leg a little bit further out in front, like if you're a sprinter coming out of the hack, what do you think they're using initially? That's going to be hamstring and glute because there's not going to be a heck of a lot of quad. There's going to be some there, of course, but this is better for walking lunges if you can find a place to do it. And I usually like this with dumbbells, as I would have my girls and my guys, depending upon who wanted their glutes to be bigger, is to not only lunge out, but actually turn their toe ever so slightly in. I know this biomechanically sounds hilarious, but you actually do a little bit of a pigeon toe. If I'm saying my toe or my foot straight forward is 0, and I turn my toe in, it's nothing more than 5 or 10 degrees maximum. And then you really, and this goes contrary to what I've read in most, we'll say, personal training handbooks or whatever, is that let your body bend. Now, in this issue, well, we should have said this too about the squat podcast last time. Is that a straight torso or a straight back is not the same as a flat back. You can have a flat back being bent over, just like the Romanian deadlift. Doesn't mean a straight back. But yes, as long as your back is not in a hyperextension or too rounded over, you can let your chest not touch your knee, but come down more towards your knee. And as long as those dumbbells don't touch the ground, so all the eccentric loading is gone, if you were to lunge out in front of you, toe ever so slightly turned in, and control that shit, don't just ram your leg out in front of you and slam on the ground and then come down like a dead fish. No, walk. Gingerly put your foot down, walk out in front of you, turn that toe ever slightly in, and then push from that heel and drive that leg backwards. You will feel your glutes so much more during that type of lunge than you'd ever dream of before. Start really light with this, maybe even just your body weight, and kind of get the exercise down to pat. That between that exercise and then doing some of the stuff with the bands that has helped my girls so friggin' much, I just can't begin to tell you.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Toe angles, leg angles.
Exactly. Exactly. What do we talk about on that? You said it beautifully on the last exercise, talking about it on the hack squat and the leg press, right? Between those toes being
Yeah.
turned out at 45 versus 30 versus 15, that's completely going to alter where the frig you push from and where the frig you feel it from.
And just try it. Like, it's not
Just
because
try it.
biomechanically, yeah, I mean, biomechanically, everyone's hip girdle is going to be a little different, and everyone's naturally, their toes are going to point a little different naturally. Like
Exactly.
I, I naturally have like the slight toe out pointing. My wife, she has very straight or even a slight pigeon toe. So for her, if I say turn your toes out, well, that's just straight. You know, like straight feels normal, or straight feels like they're turned out, I should say.
Yep.
Versus me, I'm turning my toes out, they're turned way out, type of thing. So I mean, just mess with it. Like, and it's easier to do on something like a leg press or a machine where you're kind of locked in place and you can just manipulate your legs and not your torso at first, and then you can get a feel for it from there. But let's talk about adductors and abductors too, because
Sure.
I think those are really important, especially. So if you want to talk about the most visually the way your legs look, then
Adductors, baby.
oh yeah, it's
Monstrous difference, isn't it? Especially on stages,
yeah,
the front poses. Oh my god.
well, front, and then obviously from the back some too, but from the front, yeah, they make a drastic difference in the roundness of your leg. And also
it's friggin' silly. Yes.
and I'll tell you what, like I have pretty good hamstrings, but one of the things that people, like I do the side pose and I'm like, a lot of that's my adductor that I'm pulling into that. You know what I mean? Like you think like a male or even females that do women's physique that are kind of sticking their toe out on that side tricep pose, they're pushing. If you want to push that hamstring out, having a big adductor is crucial. You know what I mean? Because yeah, that big meaty adductor will make that hamstring hang a lot more from the side, and it's also going to make it pains me when I see people with like a quad from the front that has good musculature, and then there's a giant gap in their thighs, and I just want to curl up and just oh god, it hurts. Yeah,
Curl
it's
up in the fetal position, just cry yourself to sleep, being like, "I know your legs could be so much better."
Yeah, it's just freaking painful for me to look at. I'm just like, oh man, but yeah, and it's they get trained indirectly on pretty much everything, right? I mean, they're going to be any kind of leg press and any kind of squat.
They're not just a stabilizer, though. Like they're not just there to make sure your knees don't cave. You got it.
They need trained. Well, I shouldn't say they need trained directly, but if they're lacking, they need trained directly. I don't train mine. I don't train my adductors directly at the moment. Now I have in the past. Like they're pretty good now, but I also have that, like I feel them when I do RDLs and all that stuff as well.
Perfect. So now if let's say they were dormant before and now they're not,
right.
like at least you're feeling them, right? Perfect. Good.
Right. So, but initially I used to train them a lot directly. And again, it could be something as simple as activation. So you have squats in your programming. Okay, great. Big movement trains everything. But if the activation isn't there, then your strongest muscle group's always going to do the blunt of the work. So you're going to have a quad dominant squat, or you'll have a glute dominant squat, or whatever. So pre-activate it. Like I literally used to do that. One of the things that I feel made my legs pretty good was I would literally do a little I call it like a tri-set of my quads. I always activated well. It was my hamstrings and glutes and adductor. So I literally do, I guess it would be a giant set. I would go adductor, abductor, and then I would do a band side step, and I would do a leg curl, just like a little circuit. I would do a couple of those and just like 20 reps each. Everything was blown up, pumped up. And as soon as I got under that squat bar, everything just came to life.
And that would have been at the beginning of your workout, we'd say?
Yeah, nothing taxing. Like, we're talking like a 6 out of 10 intensity wise. It wasn't like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like draining my energy. So, you know, you can use those adductor machines and abductor machines. They can be used for that purpose. However, you can build muscle. If you want to build good adductors, you can use the machine. You can use it heavy. Like it'll still, like I have people that I freaking rest pause adductors, you know,
I
and
was gonna say once you finish, I've got my story on this one. So yeah, you keep going here.
now what I'll say about that is if you do, because it is like kind of a weird stress on your groin and it
Mm-hmm.
can feel a little weird, is if you're going to train them heavy like that, I would do it later in the workout. Um,
100%. Yes.
but if you want to do a finisher or you're doing like a drop set on adductors, or you're doing like a rest pause and something that has a relatively, like using like the whole weight stack or something, um, that's fine. That's great. Once they have a little bit of blood in there and you have a good, everything's fired up, I think that's fine to do. I include that in programming, especially I do it for males and females, but like, especially for my guys that really need to pack on some meat on those adductors that need to
Mm-hmm.
like round things out. Well, yeah, shit, we'll do. I'm like, I want you to do rest pauses and progress weekly, you know,
Yeah. Oh
like on an
yes.
adductor. So it sounds goofy because all the girls are, doing the little like 5 pounds and standing up and doing them backwards and upside down. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a great machine and you can legitimately build muscles, guys and gals.
So the very easy way to think about this stuff is that there's ab and adductors, and they both sound very similar. Even listening to me here say it here, but so add with an ad is easy to think that you're adding your legs together. It's just the easiest way to think about it. And then ab ductors is just when you are pushing the legs apart. I remember again. Got to keep shouting him out here. Dante Trudell on the DC stuff. Is I remember I was still late to the game. I'm pretty sure I started doing this around 2008 or so. And exactly, just everything we just talked about. Like you want to add dimension, you want to add depth, you want to whatever to your quads, especially from your front poses. And like you said, when it's from the hamstring from the side, you can smash your adductor against your hamstring and make it look gigantic. Is you don't want to have that thigh gap. The thigh gap is one of the worst things you could possibly have as a bodybuilder for sure. But it was funny in the gym that I was at. The machine, it was oh my god, it was one of the best adductor machines I've ever seen. It was tucked away in a corner where no one could see you. I remember going up at the end of my leg days and adding in these rest pause sets of 20 to 30 reps or so. So I get about 15, 18 reps on the first one, 5, 7, 2 or 3, and then hang out there in this ridiculous extreme stretch for about a good 30 seconds where I push my hips forward on the machine and just hang out there and just relax and let it stretch. And I remember going to my massage therapist about 3 months into doing this, and he goes, "What have you been doing to your adductors? They are tighter. They're like they've got knots everywhere." I was like, "Oh, I've been doing the adductor machine." He was like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, geez, Dave, the hypertrophy you've gotten, the muscle growth has been silly." But and then I just remember, especially being a tall guy. Like, how tall are you, Austin?
I'm like 5'8", 5'9",
Well,
something like
there
that.
you go. So being at 6'1", with those longer femurs, we got to do something to get the
Right.
legs looking bigger. And so yeah, just being able to stand a little bit wider with my feet during a front ladder or front double bicep just makes that world of difference. Where the thighs are still kind of touching because thank God she built some adductors. You got to use all the tricks in the book. So doing that, and I used to love doing that because yeah, it was painful, but it was hilarious at the same time. And I remember the only other person that I've heard kind of publicly be, we'll say, famous and talk about it was Kai Green. Kai Green was doing adductor machine. He goes, "This is why my legs look so good. Is that I got to do this?" And he shows him giving some brutal sets of 20 to 25, 30 or whatever on the adductor machine. And like, yeah, because there it is. Because the dimension and the depth that it adds, like we've been talking about here, is just a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, and you made a good point too about like actually the actual posing aspect. So if you're a competitor,
100%. 100%.
is if you have small adductors, your feet have to be super close together to eliminate that gap. Whereas
Oh,
if you have good adductors, you can space your feet out and it creates that X shape of your body. It's going to be much more pronounced, and you still won't have a gap between
yeah.
your legs. Like
Yeah.
girls too, right? Like figure, like I
Oh,
talk about.
100% for figure. I was just about to say that. You go ahead. You got it.
like for figure, because typically in figure, even if you have big adductors, you're not going to like space your feet out tremendously because
No.
that's not a figure pose. But if you have meaty adductors, like your lower body's going to look wild when you turn your toe. If
Mm-hmm.
you have like just a slight outward point in your toes and just get a little more quad sweep and those thick inner adductors, oh yeah, I mean your lower body, especially when somebody's lean, it's gonna look pretty crazy.
Well, how many times have you seen guys take way too wide of a stance, turn their toes out, shove their knees out, and all of a sudden you've got a gap bigger than Texas in between their thighs? It makes you look like a chicken leg. No matter how big your quads are, no matter how big anything is, you sweep your medialis there. It's just going to look silly. You've got to have it. You got to pose for your body. If you are allowed to, because of your training, take another inch or two in between your legs and you're posing, they're still touching. That adds so much more X-frame to your physique than you could ever imagine.
Yep, I agree totally.
Wicked.
Yeah, so we're mainly talking about um, adductors, but and visually, yeah, visually training your adductors is much. You're going to get a lot more out of that than training abduction. Um,
100%. Yep.
and, abduction, like I mainly reserve that for more of like activation. Um, we will do some heavier abduction, and that can I think help with the shape of the glutes
Yes.
ultimately. Uh, but abduction's also good for like glute activation.
Yes.
Because you'll feel it like that outer part of the glute. So I think it's good for that. But yeah, I mean you can use abduction, like the abduction machine, for example, as part of a glute training or part of a hip training program. I mean, it's still going to be good because it is isolating it. You're seated, you're stuck in one spot, you can't really use anything else. Um, Definitely works. I mean, anyone that does it, a lot of people like superset the two machines together. That works well. You can even do, something that I'll include sometimes would be maybe for activation purposes or just for like blood volume type training is real easy. If you want to blow everything up, just do a giant set of leg extension, leg curl, abduction, and adduction. And
Absolutely.
you
Perfect.
and if you don't hit every single inch of your legs, at that point, then I think you need to pick a different sport. But
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah. I mean, like I said, abduction. I'm not going to use it a whole lot for hypertrophy and except as part of like a group training, and I will also use it for people that might have just generally weak hips, um,
Yeah.
as part of maybe they had an injury or maybe they've just never really trained lower body that much in the past, and they need to strengthen their hips, or maybe they have like some kind of like weird pelvic tilt or something going on that's caused their hips to be weak and their low back to be weak, for example. So I might use it there. But like I said, like visually, um, you're gonna probably get more out of just training your glutes.
Yeah. Yeah. This will be my last disclaimer on the glute training stuff is that here are the things that I would say not to do would be don't go sideways on the treadmill, do not go sideways or backwards on the step mill, don't do this stuff. So I've seen Brett Contreras, who's also known as the glute guy, talk twice. And I've had a chance to go have a one-on-one chat with him about things like this. And I remember saying to him, what do you think about girls going backwards on the step mill? And he just looked at me and laughed and immediately said, don't do that. Because it's just, not only is it the potential for injury is there, but that's not enough stimulus to get it going. The cardio is meant to do what? Cardio is meant there for fat burning. It's meant to expend calories. It's not there to be a weight training exercise. So, like, and I've seen it. I've literally seen a girl fall asleep on the step mill that was going backwards and fall face first into the wall and put a hole in the gym wall that it was at, and it was terrible. So girls don't do that stuff. It's just like akin to calves or akin to like
Also,
forearms. Oh yeah, I'm not kidding. Like, oh, she was so tired. It was probably 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out, going backwards on the step mill, and just fall face forward, boom, because it was cheap drywall at
that's
the gym I was at, and yeah, Austin, it was. I was there personal training. It was one of those I just happened to be looking up at Char, and then she just pow fell. And yeah, it's not worth it. That like trying to I don't know, we'll say make up or catch up, trying to do this stuff there. Like, just think about what is your goal of this exact, we'll say, exercise or point of exercising. So why am I on a treadmill machine? Why am I on a bike machine? Why am I on a separate machine? That is to burn calories. If you are trying to build muscle on a cardio machine, that's when you should start raising some eyebrows. So, no, I would leave all that crap for exactly what it's supposed to be trained was training. So just girls, avoid that stuff. Just it's not going to be worth your time doing the weird standing up. Like especially girls will be facing forward. You'll see them kick their legs back or whatever. And just because you see a girl with some really great thick juicy glutes doing this weird stuff does not mean that you should need to do it too. It could be because they've A, got genetic glutes, B, they've been training glutes correctly, or C, they just think it's what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes. Yeah. And I also, if you're falling asleep doing cardio, stick to the bike.
Yeah,
That's my
stick
tip.
to the damn bike where at least you fall off,
That's
you
what,
fall to the side.
right. Yeah. I know. I've fallen asleep doing cardio a couple times. I'm
Oh,
just
of
like, oh,
course. That's you got it.
I'm on the sleep stream, right? God, that's hilarious. Yeah,
Oh,
that's funny. Yeah. I mean, you could, you do hear the, some people talk about doing cardio on specific machines and that brings in muscles a little bit better. And I just have, I don't know. I don't,
yeah, burns the muscles. Of course it does. Like if I'm doing
well,
stairs, it's gonna get to, but like, but that's the perfect. That's like literally what they say. You're not kidding. It burns the muscles. Well, yes, lactic acid is just an energy byproduct that's saying, hey, we need some friggin' break. Can you not do this anymore? But if you really, really, and I mean really think that doing an hour and a half, 3 hours, make it obnoxious, 3 hours on a stepper is gonna build your quads. Come on, man.
no. Yeah. I mean, you might wither them away. Maybe
Exactly. You're going to get some atrophy. That's right. God.
if anything else. Yeah. And for fat loss, yes, blood flow to an area could enhance like circulation of
Yes,
fat.
that I
But,
agree with it. Yes, yes.
but at the same time, like I don't like the idea of just specifically doing it, like specifically targeting your glutes to think that your glutes are going to come in because you're walking on the step mill sideways. Because if anything, like I said, I normally would see areas kind of deteriorate
Yep.
from overuse, if
Well, yeah. So,
anything.
so, so
So,
let's think here. You're training legs, let's say twice a week. You're doing some extra glute stuff, and let's say you're doing intervals on the stepper, and let's say you're like, exactly, that's way too much. Your body's too smart for that. It's gonna eventually know to ditch the muscle as opposed to keep it. So it's like this isn't even dipping into something like overtraining or whatever. It's just seeing the muscle stimulus too much, and it will turn it more to of an aerobic thing than an anaerobic thing, which is being more of a cardio thing versus a muscle building thing. And it will start ditching the muscle, and you'll start seeing not only the muscle look flat, but it'll be inflamed. It will hurt. And then, yeah, like one of the dumbest things you can possibly do is have your legs or any other body part hurt perpetually every week. And you think, oh, I'm doing something. No, that means you're not recovering at all, let alone how the frig are you building muscle, let alone retaining it if it's perpetually at like a 6 out of 10 or higher in terms of a pain threshold scale. No, that's just not it.
oh yeah, if you're never recovering, you're never growing muscle. And if you're in a deficit and you're never recovering, you better believe you're
That's
probably
when it
going to
gets
lose
scary,
stuff.
right? Yeah, that's when it gets scary.
Yeah. So yeah, man, I don't know. Is there anything
For,
else you want
for
to add? I mean, I don't a whole lot.
I do got this written down because we talked about this before the show. Is how about training something like the tibialis anterior?
Did I tell you I have the machine at my house?
No, you didn't. So just in case, because I know it's one of those weird muscles is that you don't have to go Google this for, but the tibialis anterior is where most people will interpret or feel shin splints. It's that part of the front of the shin there where it's kind of that longer muscle till they'll say to the outside part of your shin bone that can just start really hurting. But no, I did not know you had the little tibialis anterior flex machine. Yeah.
Dude, yeah, I have a little plate loaded one at my house,
That's the
and
one I had at my gym there 10 years ago. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and yeah, it's not a must. Like I have some people do it as part of a calf training and part of a leg training.
Yeah.
Yeah, visually, is it going to add a lot? Well, what I could say is it does it does help the outside sweep of your calf,
Agreed. Agreed. Yes.
like um, so if you look at your leg, for example, and on the outside of your knee, how you're going to see the outside of your calf, but a lot of what you actually see is that thickness of the tibialis anterior muscle. Um, so, yeah, if you want to enhance the outside like kind of roundness as it comes off, as it comes, down from your knee, that would be a good, that's one way to do it. And it would definitely enhance the look of it. And then it can also help with things like just overall ankle stability, for example, for people that are doing squats and things like that, that might have a hard time with that or have weak ankles. Like, because you got to think if you're just training the flexion muscle, like the calf where you point the toe down, you have you're not training the pointing your toe up motion at all. So that muscle gets neglected. But, it's on an important scale. It's not, I mean, it's down there, so, but it does enhance. Like, I truly think that it can enhance the outside sweep of your calf.
Yes. Yes. No, I agree.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I was ever recommended to do it was thanks to my long legs, period, was just to make sure that the strength imbalance wasn't there. So in terms of,
Right.
let's say if I had to do something like a lower foot placement leg press, that if I did shift, we'll say not towards my toes, but more towards my toes, so I'm keeping it on my heel in the middle of my foot, that if I went there, that I just wouldn't crap out it wouldn't affect my ability to be able to do leg press properly. But yeah, you don't need to go bananas with it. Of course not. It's not something like, yeah, you're not going to get jacked front of your shins and all of a sudden, oh, that guy's going to win the overall.
Right.
Shit. Great. Yeah.
I don't know. I just
if it does, if you win the overall because you're tibialis anterior and you've got written proof of the judge saying that, please send it to Austin and me because that would be fucking fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing. I like it. I think, like I said, it's anything I can do to make my crappy calves a little bit better. I'll take it.
Yeah, to make your calves have to take their depends off and become real calves as opposed to baby calves. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, calves grows into cows for sure. No,
for sure.
Well, geez, man, that's 52 minutes on the less of the roller body. What do you think? You want to cut it off there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay,
I don't have much.
No, I don't think I got much either. Well, maybe we'll do another episode here on training some ancillary stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's way more than enough stuff on not only the calves and the adductors, but just how to make your legs be as more 3D as possible. Just because I wish I had been told that stuff, because I remember reading about the stuff that we just talked about. And I was 24, 25. And if I had been told that when I was 16 or 17, think of the difference it would have made, right? So just add in some adductor stuff. Guys especially, but girls too, is add in some correct band or fluffier glute stuff to make them pop out. And just, like as we've been hammering through this entire kind of series, is activation exercises. Really find out what works for you, find it out, and kind of go from there. But yeah, from Austin and Marty here at the Mind Body Broadcast, we'll catch you next time.